Hello, this is Mark from the Dinosaur Soft Tissue Research Institute, and we are critiquing a video that's been on YouTube for over a year. You can see how many views, and so a lot of people have seen this. This is full of errors of fact, which we've made clear to these folks before. And so to correct these errors of fact on our work from 2012 and to present it according to the way it was published, we decided to make this video. We here at the Institute certainly regret any embarrassment that this may cause Del Tackett, our students, or any other parties who were affected by the gross errors that were presented in this Compass Cinema film.
Well, we were looking at dinosaur fossils. The bones have been fossilized from dinosaurs. And these honestly look more like rocks to me, but they're... What do you have here? What are you studying?
Well, this actually is not a bone. These are fragments of a Triceratops horn.
Well, I actually have the base of the horn right here. This is the actual base of the Triceratops horn that was dug out of Hell Creek. It's about 8 pounds. It's solid bone. In fact, it has a solid outer core of compact bone and then an inner core called the inner horn core, which is vascular. Most of this is vascular, having all the blood vessels traveling through the center and all the major part of the bone, compact bone, outside around the edges. So now, this is solid bone.
Okay, well, let's talk now about what you do with these, okay? You've got these here. What would be your standard process of wanting to then examine?
Well, as you can see, these look like a rock. So what you have to do is you have to literally dissolve the rock away. So what we do is we soak the fossil material in a solution called EDTA. It's a very mild acid that will grab the calcium ions out of the fossil. And so you just literally dissolve the fossil. And what you'll have after you dissolve the fossil is the tissue will be remaining because the EDTA won't dissolve the tissue.
This gives a clear impression that dinosaur soft tissue recovery is an ongoing project in that laboratory, at least as of 2020, yet all of the images you're about to see were collected 10 years ago by myself. And so if you are currently working in dinosaur soft tissue, it'd be nice to see your current work. Our current work just received a journal cover for our work on dinosaur soft nerves. And so we're very proud of the work that we did 10 years ago, but to show only our work and to claim that this work is continuing is disingenuous.
And what you'll have after you dissolve the fossil is the tissue will be remaining because the EDTA won't dissolve the tissue.
Actually, that's not true. What we have discovered after a decade of decalcifying dinosaur bones is that the EDTA will eventually degrade cells, sometimes very quickly. So we've noticed this with the filopodial extension of the osteocytes, and we've also noticed it with the osteocyte cell body itself. That phospholipid membrane develops voids, big holes in it, as a result of exposure to EDTA. So yeah, this is what we've discovered over a decade.
So where are you now in this process? What would be your next step?
Well, some of these have just started, but the next step would be then we would take and we'd pour off the solution.
Okay.
Right now I'm not worried about what's in here. I will collect that and analyze it at some point later, but right now I'm just wanting to look at this.
What's left there?
Right.
Okay.
So then I'll bring this over to what we call a dissection microscope.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, what we see is this is, in essence, dissolved Triceratops horn magnified.
Well, Kevin, what did you find then when you were looking at the sample and you actually found some tissue?
Okay, here's what we found. Here we have a piece of the horn that has been decalcified, like what I just showed you over on the bench. Mark Armitage was our microscopist working on this, and Mark then took a piece of the decalcified horn and put it under a microscope. See the fibrous material there? That's part of the composition of the bone matrix itself.
Sorry, no, wrong. And I'm mystified why this is missed completely. That is not fibrous part of the bone. It's not a part of the bone matrix. In fact, a photograph of this video was in the Acta Histochemica paper, figure number 7, which clearly shows that these are the permineralized vessels. These are blood vessels that selectively permineralized, and that was the term that I coined in the paper, selective permineralization, because only the vessels themselves became hardened into stone because the base of the horn was facing up and all the water was coming into it. None of the bone itself and none of the tissues inside of the bone cells or the vessels inside of the bone matrix fossilized, just the vessels. And so no, this is not fibrous material inside of the bone, and this is not part of the bone matrix. These are the vessels from the horn cord that permineralized per figure 7 in the paper Acta Histochemica. It is baffling why the junior author of this paper cannot even describe what was published in the paper regarding selective permineralization. In order to make this more impactful about selective permineralization, let's look at some horn bone that was decalcified. And you see these hardened vessels. These are the vessels that were exposed after all the bone mineral was decalcified away. That was all taken away, and now we've exposed these hard vessels that were turned into rock. As we magnify, you see these sheets of collagen, because the sheets of soft collagen are laid down on the outside of these vessels. And if we magnify even more, you will begin to see the stunning nature of the delicate preservation of these cells. This is about 9,000 power. And we can go on up all the way to 17,000 power. You can see the delicate and amazing structural preservation of these soft tissues. We have liberated these cells into solution, and we have shown that they're flexible, bendable, moldable. So this point of selective permineralization is so important. That's why it was written up in the paper.
And if you look, see, this is dissolved away. This would be the interior of the horn, and you can see all the detail that would be left in there after you take the calcium away. Now, here is a light microscope picture of the tissue itself. You can see the texture of it, and in fact, notice the arrows, they're pointing to cells. Those are bone cells. They're involved in making bone.
I'm going to show you a photograph. In fact, it's the same photograph as the one that was just pointed out to you. And it was published in volume 51 of the Creation Research Society Quarterly. And this photograph, the same photograph that you just saw, shows the arrows pointing to organelles, not cells. The point of that micrograph was to show that the preservation is so great that even internal organelles seem to be preserved.
Okay, now we're coming into some of the texture of the horn itself. And see, this would be a blood vessel.
Those two photographs you were just shown came from the, again, Creation Research Society Quarterly, issue 51, spring number 4. Those are figures 11 and 12. Shown here in the journal. These figures are referring to, yes, blood vessels, but this is not from the horn. You're not looking at the texture of the horn itself. You're looking at Triceratops' rib.
Well, Kevin, I understand you published all of this work.
Yes,
is that right?
This work has been published. We've actually made the cover of American Laboratory.
Yes, the photograph of the piece of stretchy fibrillar tissue that was thin sectioned did make the cover of American Laboratory December 2012. But it's not because he prepared the tissue, and it's not because he took the photograph, and it's not because he sent the photograph to American Laboratory. In fact, no one knew about this photograph until it was published in December of 2012. Now, what do we call it when we claim that some work that we didn't do is ours?
Now, Mark then was able to extract some very thin layers of elastic material away from the inner core of the horn.
thin layers of elastic material? No, wrong. The title of the paper is Soft Sheets of Fibrillar Bone. Soft sheets of fibrillar bone. That's what was found. And so to call this just some kind of thin elastic material really minimizes the work. There's so many world firsts here, which we're going to describe in a second.
But he didn't have to decalcify the horn in order to do this. You can see it's stretchy, it's flexible. In fact, look, notice, see how it's stretching? It's stretching almost to twice its original size of what it was. See, this again is original dinosaur tissue that he's peeled directly from the fossil. There was no decalcification that he did first. See, this is how accessible this tissue was. He didn't have to remove any fossilized bone to get to this tissue.
There's a lot to correct here. Number one, peeled directly from the fossil. First of all, even though this is technically a fossil because it was in the ground, it's not fossilized, it's not rock. And so the thing that we need to remember is that this was bone, it was still bone. And so I didn't really peel it directly from the fossil, although I did peel off the bone, and but it had to be processed. It had to go through fixation and rehydration. So it's kind of disingenuous to say that it was just peeled off the bone and put it in the microscope. No, that's not how it happened. It is true I did not have to decalcify, but I had to do fixation and rehydration. These tissues later went through freezing on a cryostat. And then I thin sectioned them. And that's what appeared on the cover of American Laboratory. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say, yeah, I just peeled it off the bone and threw it under the microscope. No, that's not how this works. Finally, he states we did not have to remove any fossilized bone. That's not correct. We did have to apply pressure fracture to fracture the horn open and remove the compact bone. Remember I showed you around the outside. That had to be removed in order to find the layers underneath that. So it's not true to say that no bone was removed to find these layers, because there was bone removed.
We also published in a journal called ACTA Histochemica, and that's a more technical article. It goes through and explains then what we did, how we processed the horn, and then of course draws some conclusions from that. Particularly the conclusions are that even though it's a horn, which is different from a bone, it still had tissue.
We've already shown that the Triceratops horn is a bone. But what is being missed here is that this is not just a technical article. This is a scientific paper published in an international journal. The reports of this paper are not being discussed. He is not presenting the results of this paper. This paper had so many world firsts. Nobody's ever asked me, Mark, are you proud of the work in the Acta Histochemica paper? And I would have to say, I'm very proud. It has many world firsts in it. It was the first brow horn of a Triceratops to ever find dinosaur soft tissue. And it found it all, folks. In addition to nerves and vessels and cells, it found stretchy sheets of soft fibrillar bone caught in place before it became permineralized into bone. It's a world first in many respects. I'm very proud of this article. It talks about and demonstrates selective permineralization, which has never been discussed before, where part of the bone can be permineralized and the rest is left completely soft. So no, let's report accurately the results of this paper, or let's not talk about it at all. I just want to take a moment to tell you why we're doing things the way we're doing at the Dinosaur Soft Tissue Research Institute, because we're an institute. We're a 501c3, and we give everything away. We're not a sales organization, therefore we're not driven by marketing goals or sales goals or any goals such as that, any monetary goals whatsoever. So we're a little bit different in the way we do our work. As a scientific organization, we publish at the highest levels. And we need to maintain that integrity. And so that's why this critique of this work, which is full of errors, was warranted. It's not pleasant, it's not fun, it's not something we want to do. But we want our work to be presented in the best light possible and to be seen by the world in the way that it was published and presented by our scientists. So If you are interested in the dinosaur soft tissue work that we are doing, that we are publishing regularly, I think now we have our 7th publication in secular journals on dinosaur soft tissue, please contact us. We'd be happy to interview with you and give you the real straight information about dinosaur soft tissue. Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.